Red Dead Redemption, mate!
Isn't it so good?
Do you want another one?
Hell yeah.
Do you want the same one but better?
Yeah.
Good. There's a Red Dead remake imminent. So she also said, I'm Scott Tilford. That's Josh Brown.
Hello, Scott Tilford.
Welcome to the Daily Gaming News. Yes, a Red Dead Redemption remake is apparently imminent. A new version has been rated by the South Korean ratings board. Now, we knew this a few days ago, or even more than that. It's been rated a good few days ago.
Yeah.
However, ex-IGN/owner of Last Stand Media's Colin Moriarty said that he knows the game is definitively coming and said, I can say that I've seen confirmation that this is real. I had someone reach out to me behind the scenes that showed me something that definitively shows the game is coming, maybe even imminently with an announcement in August.
Oh my god. Scott Tilford, how is this happening? Because I'm pretty sure like a year ago, maybe even a little bit more, there was the rumor that this was dead. The report that came out that they were initially planning to make a Red Dead Redemption remaster, but then because of the terrible reception of the GTA trilogy, they either canned it or put it on ice. I don't really even necessarily need to know why, but if this is true and it has been revived, I love that. I love Red Dead Redemption 1, and recently I played it. I said recently, like a year and a half ago during lockdown. I went back and played the original on backwards compatibility on Game Pass, and I was just thinking, my lord, what a good remaster this would make.
So Moriarty also said that it's worth adding to the statement he mentioned before that the South Korean ratings board doesn't just rate things, they rate things that are submitted to them. So it seems like Rockstar assumedly have some sort of version of this that is further, far enough over the line to be rated in an official capacity. But yeah, it's worth mentioning the definitive edition of the Grand Theft Auto trilogy that was handed over to Grove Street Games. That's why that thing was in such a mess. Took months for them to turn stuff around. I still don't necessarily think it is the definitive edition. It's still missing a whole bunch of the songs that were in the originals, but you have to imagine that their approach to Red Dead, at least, I don't know, timeline wise, it could be with a third party studio, with a different studio altogether. I'm just hoping that they do right by Red Dead this time.
Honestly, right, this has been referred to as a remaster. Personally, I would prefer a remake of that game. I don't know where you stand on that, but at this moment in time, I will kind of take whatever I can get, but I think that game is so ripe for a remake using Red Dead Redemption 2's engines and controls, and maybe even tweaking the story a little bit to make it fit. Well, this is the thing. When I went back and played it, Scott Tilford, the story didn't really impress me as much as it did back in the day, and that's because I'm a huge fan of Red Dead Redemption 2. It was still really good, but if they wanted to change a few things with it, all I'm saying is I wouldn't mind. I'm not saying, massively overhaul it, just a few tweaks here and there, maybe a few dialogue changes with some of the characters to make them more in line with the versions that are found in Red Dead Redemption 2. Have a little bit more dimension to them. Not to say that those characters aren't good, but they're more archetypal, I would say, in RDR1.
No, that's true. If they're going to go back and tweak anything, I guess they can go back and make it a little bit more smooth, the transition between both games, because you have things like Dutch referring to, you have John Marston referring to the last time he saw Dutch, and he's, the last time I saw you, you were trying to kill me, which obviously when you play Red Dead Redemption 1, that isn't the last time you see him. There's a bit of a boss fight there, but it's still, I've always felt like the dialogue could have matched up a lot better there, in terms of the scenes that are being referred to. There is a way to knit those things together. My gut says that this will be a texture overhaul with a 60 FPS approach to it, more like the definitive edition. I don't know how many years they would have had to put into this to give it the Last of Us Part 1 treatment, let's say. And I'm curious, do people want that? Like, is that what people want from a go, if they're going to go back to something as well known as this? Do you need to preserve it, identically? Changing the dialogue and changing the story, it depends what they do. I remember that game being perfect, and I have played it since 2010, but that was still a good few years ago.
Absolutely. I think with Rockstar as well, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't seem to be keen on fully remaking their games, at least internally, but they are allowing Remedy to remake Max Payne 1 and 2, so maybe it's a similar situation here where they might not be directly overseeing it, but they might push it out to someone else and say, you know what, make this more in line. Like you said, the timeline doesn't seem to indicate that. It probably will be more of a remaster. I just kind of want to see more Rockstar games. I love Red Dead Redemption 2, I love Grand Theft Auto 5, but I want to see more output from them, even if it is just in the form of remasters of these beloved games that we've had previously. I thought the LA Noire remaster was really welcome. The fact that you can play that game, on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, etc. now is really cool. So why not give their, most beloved franchises the same treatment? It is kind of crazy to me that you can, log on now and just buy LA Noire on whatever platform you're playing on, but you can't do that with Red Dead Redemption 1, which is this beloved title.
No, that's really true. I think when you think about Rockstar, you think about the last 10 years, or even more than that, Red Dead Redemption does stick out. It's always held up as one of the best games of all time, which we'll be talking about on the What Culture Gaming podcast. Please subscribe to that for a breakdown of those titles. But yeah, I feel like overall Rockstar could do with a bit of a win. I feel like they're not talked about in anywhere near as positive, and they're not talked about anywhere near as positively as they used to. And it's just one of those things where the last major game was Red Dead Redemption 2, and that was in 2018, 5 years ago. So it's worth them just doing a little something to remind you of what they used to do when they were on the form of their lives.
How many years ago?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years
Half
ago?
a decade ago, Josh Brown. We've all been through quite a lot since then.
We absolutely have.
So what would you change if you were going to overhaul stuff?
Well, I feel like you're setting me up for a fail here in the comments, because everything I say, people are going to say, no, it's a perfect game,
Josh.
We don't want things changed. I would change the focus on kind of like the characters, like I mentioned.
Okay.
Like I said, make them more in line with their characterization in the previous game and kind of smooth them out a bit. I always feel like Jack and Abigail get a little bit shortchanged in the first game. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more from them because their characterizations are so good in Red Dead Redemption 2. From a gameplay perspective, I'd love to see them keep the bones of it the same, but instead of changing anything to like the mission structure or anything like that, which still is really enjoyable to play right now, I'd love for them to add in more, not side missions, but like the random encounters that you had in Red Dead Redemption 2. If they could populate the world with a few more of those, I'd love to see that, because the random encounters in Red Dead Redemption 2 are what make you is what makes you feel like you're living in that world. And you do have them in RDR1, but I want more of that. I'm selfish.
What I'm fascinated by is modern Rockstar's game feel, because from Max Payne 3 onwards, we had a notably different feel for how their titles play, and it was in there a little bit in GTA 4, and I wonder how much they bring in Red Dead Redemption 2's feel into Red Dead Redemption 1, because Red Dead 2 is like notoriously one of the most unfinished games of all time in terms of people's completion data. It hovers around about 30-40% of all players actually got through it on PlayStation, and so it's one of those things where, is that because of the game feel? There was a whole kind of conversation around you had to go in the menu settings and tweak all the different aiming settings to make it feel a bit more snappy, a bit more responsive, or is that the thing that you want from that style of game? I kind of do, but at the same time I definitely feel the sluggishness that was in Red Dead 2.
I'm not saying you should bring that over to Red Dead Redemption 1. That kind of works more because it's kind of towing the line. It is fast-paced and a little bit arcadey sometimes in the shooting, but it still has that sense of weight and sense of place that you want from a Rockstar game, at least in my opinion. I wonder with Red Dead Redemption 2, that game's just massive. I wonder whether it's less about the game feel and more just how big the game is and how long the main story is and how much there is to do in that world. Like, every time I've played that game, admittedly only twice, it's taken me 100 hours each time. Because, I get sidetracked, even though I've done the missions and just roamed the plains over and over again. I always find myself wanting to do it. In Red Dead Redemption 1, while a shorter game, does have a bit of that. My fondest memories of the first game are just like camping out in the wilderness, hunting down some of the legendary animals. However, that's all single-player stuff, Scott Tilford.
He's pale at the minute.
Did you play much of RDR1's multiplayer? Because if they remaster it without that component, I'll be a little bit sad.
I don't care. So I only played the very beginning of it. I did like a tiny bit. I'm not going to Rockstar games for the multiplayer. I'm just not. I never was. I did play quite a lot of GTA's multiplayer on the PSP, which me and 3 other people worldwide would have done that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think Red Dead Online kind of face planted the floor. So I think they would ditch that and just do a single player only thing. And if you want the Red Dead Online fix, it would be in Red Dead Online, which I think has already proven itself to just not be a thing.
God, I had so much fun on the original Red Dead Online, even just in like the exploring the open world with friends. But like the deathmatch was like really fun. I had a lot of fun in that mode, Scott. And if they cut it out, to me, of course, the majority of players wouldn't mind.
Right.
It would be like them cutting out factions out of Last of Us Part 1. But I also love factions.
Factions is way better than Red Dead, I would say, in terms of the multiplayer stuff. But
underrated.
It's one of those things where, like, if they're going to reapproach Red Dead and what it meant to put Red Dead out in 2010, then they do need to reapproach the different components of it and the multiplayer side of things. Obviously, it became a way bigger deal over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm just so curious what level of production this thing has overall.
Let me ask you before we sign off. Yes. Do you think if this is their approach, if it's remaking games like Max Payne, if it is remastering games like Red Dead Redemption 2, as a Rockstar fan, is that enough for you to bridge the gap gaps between the big sequels. It is for me because I like the scale of your Red Dead Redemption 2s and your GTA 5s and presumably your GTA 6s, but I know people will be saying, well, why don't you just make other smaller games?
I would much rather have that. I mean, it's one of those things where I'll just drop a bombshell of a statement. I pretty much think Rockstar are dead in regards to the Rockstar that I grew up with and love. I will only point people at the video I did about how Red Dead Redemption 2 is about the death of Rockstar. Most of the key minds that made Rockstar what it is have left the company. Your Dan Houses, your Laszlo Jones, your Leslie Benzes, they've all gone. And so it's one of those things where I think this is all they can do. And I'll be amazed at whatever the next actual release from Rockstar is. So not to execute the man next to me, but I just don't see it. So I'll smile politely at these remakes, but I don't.
I don't even have a retort. I'm so brutalized on the insides.
That's the way things go. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Check out this video right here for some Red Dead Redemption secrets. I've been Scott from Tailford from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
Catch you next time.
Bye bye.
They're dead.